Hi, this is Tony for Very Local. I had this incredible just excitement about being able to have a chance and an opportunity to do an article on the Ponce Inlet Lighthouse. And this morning when I got up, I drove through the most horrendous rainstorm imaginable. I could barely see. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, great. I had an entire day booked out to do this incredible story on this incredible lighthouse behind me. And it ain't gonna happen because the weather. But I got a break in the weather, and then really focusing, really thinking about the story, I thought to myself, you know, getting people to a destination when they can't see, when it's not visible, when there's terrible weather out at sea, isn't that what a lighthouse is all about?
Yeah, I like to say that once you come in the white picket fence, you're stepping back about 135 years into history. Um, this particular lighthouse, the Ponce Inlet Lighthouse, is an amazing example of restoration and preservation. Uh, we're one of what I call the brick giants, actually, lighthouse people call the brick giants, and this station is complete. So it's probably one of the few light stations in the United States, historic light stations, that is complete in the sense that everything that was here on November 1st, 1887, when it was first lit, is here now. The 1835 lighthouse was actually located on the opposite shore of the inlet, on the south shore of the inlet. And here's a model of it. It was a very typical American lighthouse built at that time in a standardized size. They were 45, 50, 55, 60, 65 feet. And they were brick for the most part with a plaster and then a whitewash or a paint on the outside. It was built very poorly. We suspect there was no foundation for the lighthouse. It was built too close to the water, and that particular year, 1835 and early 1836, there were a series of week-long storms which eroded so much of the beach in front of this particular lighthouse that in March of 1836, it literally fell into the water. At the same time that this poor thing is falling into the water, we're having a little bit of a problem with our Native Americans at that point, and we're now looking at the Second Seminole War, which extends on to the 1840s and really halts any attempt to repair this particular tower or replace it. And it is actually not until 1887 that the lighthouse, this lighthouse, the present lighthouse on the north side of the inlet, is built. This is the 1887 first order Fresnel lens. This lens was installed in our lighthouse and first lit November 1st, sorry, oh boy, and was first lit November 1st, 1887. It performed magnificently until there were complaints from ship's captains in the late 1920s. And it wasn't a complaint about this light. It was a complaint that other lights were in competition with this lights, and those other lights were hotels in Daytona Beach. This lens, its job was to project a solid white light out to ships at sea in a series of other lighthouses that flashed. Well, The government said, "We hear you, ship's captains. What we're going to do is take this lens down and we're going to replace it with a flashing lens that had a very different flash from all the other lenses on this particular coast." And so this lens went into storage and unfortunately was lost to us until very early on in our Preservation Association efforts. We relocated it and we literally were able to bring it back home on exhibit here. These are the tools of the lightkeeper, a magnificent collection of the actual things that lightkeepers use. Larger lamps or lanterns were used in the larger lenses. And so you can see we have a variety of sizes here that will demonstrate what lamp would go into what lens. Many people come to the lighthouse to climb. And then they realize that there's an awful lot of history here, so we have a saying, yeah, they come for the climb and stay for the history. The history is amazing. Tower is the tallest tower in Florida. It's the third tallest tower in the nation. Nobody was going for a record back then. Very simply, it is engineering folks. Do the math, geometry, you sophomores, you remember that. It's where the ships are and how flat this area is determines the height or the need for the height for a lighthouse tower. At this point, our ships are safe at about 7 to 9 miles out, and that's what the tower, that's what the tower is for. It's red, and many of you folks are familiar with some other lighthouses in this area, possibly the St. Augustine Lighthouse, which is to our north. The St. Augustine Lighthouse is decorated very differently, and that's for a reason. St. Augustine is visually a day mark. The Ponce Inlet Lighthouse during the day is also a day mark. It's Venetian red color. And of course, if you're heading to the south, you're going to come to the Cape Canaveral Tower. And the Cape Canaveral Tower is a white tower with black horizontal bands. From 9 miles out, if they weren't decorated differently, they'd all look the same, and we can't have that for ships at sea. There were about 1,400 lighthouses established, or light stations established in the United States, starting actually with the 12 colonial lighthouses, and then of course our first American lighthouse, Old Cape Henry, on Cape Henry, Virginia. With automation, of course, many of those lighthouses were either torn down, were abandoned, as we were. Essentially, we were automated in the 1970s, and the Coast Guard, who was responsible for our light at that time, they literally did not abandon the station, but they lived off station. Lighthouses serve a significant backup to our electronics. Lighthouses are the visual proof to a navigator who is navigating electronically that he is where he is. And navigators say, I want confirmation. And that's what lighthouses do, what American lighthouses do. Thankfully, we still have about 400 that are operational along the coast of the United States and also on the Great Lakes. People forget the Great Lakes. Given the Great Lakes, we have about 8,000 miles of coast in the United States. Navigators want that confirmation.